Welcome to OutWithDan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to chat with Lambda award-winning author Alexandria Bellefleur, and we're going to chat about The Devil She Knows. Welcome, Alexandria.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Oh, this is such a pleasure. What a fun read this was. So can you give the audience a little overview of what The Devil She Knows is about?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, we are following a down on her luck chef who has just proposed to her girlfriend and not only been rejected, but dumped epically in public. She goes home to lick her wounds and finds herself trapped in an elevator with a woman who's claiming to be a demon who wants to offer her 6 wishes in exchange for her soul. Sam thinks it's a great deal. She only needs one wish to get her ex-girlfriend back. But Daphne the demon throws her a few curveballs along the way.
I love it. One of the things I was struck by is, when you're in love with someone or you think you're in love with someone, you see them slightly different than maybe everyone else sees them. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what part of that trope did you want to explore?
I think what was really important for me was that this was Hannah, Sam's ex-girlfriend, was her first love. Sam grew up in a very small town in Louisiana, and she was only out to her family before she moved to New York City. And so when she met Hannah, it wasn't just that she fell in love with Hannah or the idea of Hannah. She fell in love with the idea of getting that happily ever after that she didn't see for herself necessarily before that. So as you read, you quickly discover that Hannah is not the right person for Sam, but Sam takes a little longer to catch up because she's clinging to that happily ever after.
Yeah, and I love that. There's one line in the book that I've used myself in life. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Because
Absolutely.
And I think, that's the thing about love or infatuation, that sometimes we project on them what we want to see from them and not necessarily what they are. And I think that, so I'm a romantic at heart. So for me, that sometimes is difficult because I try to see the good in everyone. But as I heard at this self-help class, they said, don't think everyone is good or bad. Give them a blank slate. They will write on it soon enough and you'll know who they are. And I think that's something that you really tackled in this book so wonderfully.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to kind of portray that because Sam enters the book then with some preconceived notions about Daphne, the demon. She automatically thinks like, "Oh, you are the antagonist. You are, we're going to butt heads. You're not a good person." When everything that Daphne shows her in her actions, even though she's kind of trickstery, she ends up being very genuine and very, very good deep down inside.
And I did love that. I mean, honestly, you give us characters that we can really root for. And I think that Daphne is a character that we can really root for as well, because I think we all think, oh, if we were only invincible and could live forever, but that is sort of a jail unto itself.
Absolutely.
If someone says to you, okay, you'll never die. So you think, okay, well, all of my friends age, they die, they move on, life changes, mine doesn't. And while I think it might be fun to be immortal, I don't really think so. I think that so there I felt sorry for Daphne. I mean, you gave us a little bit of a reason to really be on Daphne's side. And I'm sorry, not Daphne. Yeah, Daphne's side.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I all of a sudden Hannah flashed across my face, and I'm like, no, not for that one, no. But yes, I mean, you give Daphne some depth there because she has her own struggles in life that she has to go through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the charm of being immortal would wear off after a couple centuries. It gives me enough time to read all the books I want to read. And then once I've burned through that, yeah, that would wear on me after a while. And Daphne, yeah, she has kind of a tragic backstory. that I wanted to slowly reveal that she has these vulnerabilities and she compensates with a lot of humor. She's definitely a humor forward individual. Um, and I really like there's a scene where Daphne and Sam, their relationship kind of deepens and Daphne shares that backstory. And that was a scene that I was really looking forward to writing.
Oh, lovely. And I loved reading it when we got to it. You know, one of the things that Daphne does is she says, "Oh, I have a backstory, but it's boring." You know, and of course, I think that when you've lived several hundred years old, it might be boring to tell that story again and again and again. So,
Well, definitely. And I think she realizes that everyone has a backstory. So hers is, just an iteration of someone else's, probably.
yes. Yes, I love it. I noticed from watching you on other interviews and reading on your website that you like to create characters that one is a curmudgeon, so to speak, and one is a sunny optimist. So
Hmm.
I felt like in some ways you gave both of those characteristics to Daphne because while she is certainly the sunny of the
Hmm.
two. She has this backstory that's a wee bit sad, and I think she looks at life in a different way than someone who's just optimistically sunny all the time.
Oh, definitely. Her view of life and love is definitely bleak. So yeah, the grumpy kind of aspect definitely comes into play in that, but then she compensates with humor. And so in that sense, like outwardly, she kind of looks like that sunshine character. She dresses like that sunshine character. But it's definitely a shield. She uses the way that she dresses, the way that she speaks, the way that she manipulates conversations to, yeah, she wears it as armor.
And one thing I will compliment you on, another thing is the fact that you write witty repartee so easily. I mean, you feel the immediate connection between the two in the elevator, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And yet they don't lose their personality of being a bit of a smart aleck, both of them really, and no nonsense type characters. So how hard or easy is that for you to write?
I feel like the banter, the dialogue comes to me very naturally, but that's probably after years spent. I'm not sure if you experience this, where you'll have a conversation and then hours later, days later, you'll think of that perfect comeback. And it's always like in the shower for me. I'll be in the shower and I'll be like, oh, I should have said that. And so, I'll have like little like shower conversations with myself. And so I feel like the dialogue, it flows naturally for me because I have that, years of experience thinking about what I wish I would have said.
I love that. So, um, in the elevator early on, Sam gets a wish granted. And I have to say that I loved that whole yin and yang and setup and the amount of time the wish took to be fulfilled. I thought that was simply magical. And to go one step further, because I'm going to tell everyone what the wish was, because Arnaud's is my favorite place to eat in New Orleans.
Oh,
Commander's
great. It's
Palace
great.
comes,
Yes.
Commander's Palace follows very closely behind, but Arnaud's has my heart and soul. And when I was there in September, I had that pecan bread pudding, and I
Oh,
loved
yeah, it's
that.
wonderful. It's so good. It's like I have dreams about that bread pudding. And so that was definitely a little bit of a small little self-insert that if I were going to test a demon offering me a wish, I would probably spend it on some bread pudding that I couldn't readily get my hands on. Yeah.
Yeah, bread pudding to me is magical because it. I have never even attempted to make it, even though I make a lot of dishes. Desserts. I like desserts, but I'm not very good at them. So I don't ever attempt bread pudding because I'm just like, if I screwed it up, it might injure my future for bread pudding. So, I was like,
It's an underrated dessert. I feel like a lot of people forget about it. They leave it off their list. They're like cake and pie and this and that. And I'm like, oh, but bread pudding, it's the underdog.
it is definitely the underdog, and it's the most warm and inviting in my estimation. So
Yes, it definitely is.
something else you did, which I really do love, and this is something every time I see this in a book with queer characters, I like to point this out. So you gave Sam's mom and dad such love and humanity. And that always blows me away, because it's like, yes, some of us don't get the best parents. It's not the right fit, so to speak. But some of us get really great parents. And I really like to see an author highlight that when they have the opportunity to do that. So was that important for you?
It was important to me, mostly because when I'm writing these books, I don't want the conflict to be about the character's identity. I feel like there's so much more that you can explore in terms of the conflict, and I wanted to give Sam that support system in her mom and dad. So yeah, that was definitely something that I wanted. She doesn't have much of a support system living in New York City, but when they went home, I wanted to highlight that she does have that, and that's part of what has kind of made her life so strained in her relationship with Hannah, that Hannah didn't kind of, allow Sam to nurture that bond with her parents.
There's something very telling in her father's conversation with Sam, when he says that, Sam says, "Well, you didn't know Hannah," and he said something along the lines of, "Well, that's just the point." And because
Absolutely.
I do think that, we sometimes we hold things close to our own chest and we don't share them with our loved ones. And
Mhm.
we sort of cheat them out of that ability to feed us and nourish us, because we don't share with them. And sometimes that's about trust issues. Totally understand it. But that little moment between her and her dad was just so beautiful to me.
Yeah, I really loved writing that scene. It was the the back of the book is a little bit more emotional forward. The first half is more plot forward. So I had a lot of fun writing all those really, they're not heavy scenes necessarily, but they definitely, the emotional beats are really strong, I think. So I was looking forward to writing those scenes. The first half I was like, oh, the hijinks are so great, but then getting to really write those bonds for Sam was nice in the back half.
Well, and I think also the hijinks at the beginning of the book sets the stakes up even higher for the end of
Hmm.
the book. So, you
Definitely.
certainly plotted the arc perfectly. So
Oh, thank
it's,
you.
yes, I mean, I just absolutely enjoyed it. So, you write Southern scenes and Southern dialogue quite beautifully as well.
Thank you.
Being Southern, it means a lot to me. I'd rather someone who isn't good at it just simply write standard English and not try to give it a flavor. Not every author is good with flavor. I noticed that was something that came quite naturally to you. I gather, or else you had somebody from Louisiana read it and say, what do the words sound like? I don't know which one it is.
Well, I was born in Florida. I grew up in North Georgia before moving to the Pacific Northwest, and then I have family in the Nashville area in Tennessee, and I have spent some time there, living there in the past decade. So yeah, I have roots in the South, not specifically Louisiana. I did try to like fact check the specific nuances of, dialect there, but yeah, so just the general Southern kind of vibe does come naturally to me.
Oh, good. And I like that, because on your website it says you grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and that was
Hmm.
one of the things I thought, wow, that's unique. But having been born in Florida and lived in Georgia, you certainly get an ear for what the sound is like, because we
Definitely.
and all over the South, while to the untrained ear, we all sound the same. We really don't. There are certain
No.
nuances that people in Louisiana say, and people in North Carolina say, and even people in Northern Florida, which is really
Yeah.
truly Southern
Uh,
through and
yes,
through.
it is. It's a whole other world. It's a whole other world, North Florida. Yeah, I think the primary thing I have is the pen merger that's clung to like my speech, that everything is, pen, not pen.
Well, yes, and it is funny, because I had well, it's not funny, it's funny to me, but anyway, I had speech class in college, and that was one of the things that my professor was so intent on getting us to understand, was the difference in pen, pan, and pin. Where you
Hmm.
stick a pin in something,
Yes.
and it's like, oh, it's like, okay, which I do. I love that. I love when someone uses the right pronunciation for it, even though I managed to bastardize a lot of my day-to-day language.
But it adds flavor. I like that we all sound different.
I totally agree. So, was there a particular impetus or idea that drove this particular book?
Oh, yeah, actually there was. So it was during the height of the pandemic. I was finishing up my third book, Count Your Lucky Stars. I had just sent it to my editor, and I had a little bit of downtime, and I decided to rewatch the movie Bedazzled, starring Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, and I hadn't seen it in years. And watching it, I was like, this would be so much better if his character wound up with the devil. There's so much chemistry and so much potential there. And so I really started thinking about it, and I was like, well, I want to write something like that. I want to make it sapphic, and I want to explore what that relationship would be like and the challenges that would come from it. So that was the jumping off point for me.
I love it. I'm glad you rewatched that movie.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, the book is called The Devil She Knows. It's by Alexandria Bellefleur. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me on today's show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at Go Out with Dan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.